Keith, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today. It's really great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So let's start off a little bit about you and what you do and your experience so that people have an understanding of where your expertise comes from. Tell us a little bit about you and Wintrust.
Oh, thank you. Keith Renno, Wintrust Mortgage. We're a national direct lender. Been in the business now for 13 years, so mainly helping folks in the purchase market, although we do refinances as well, but we're really dedicated and have a team set forth to meeting our time frames and dealing with purchases and making sure we're really hitting the mark there.
Excellent. Great. So Keith, I work with a lot of people who move from the rental market into purchasing their first home, or sometimes they've moved back and forth. So as people are looking to purchase a home, what kind of things do they need to keep in mind to prepare to speak to you to look into the financing?
Great question. So typically the first step, as we like to educate folks, is the pre-qual and then going into the pre-approval. And that's really where we're reviewing three key things: the credit, income, and then available funds for down payment. And then based upon those three factors is really how we're determining options. And typically what we do is let folks know what all of their options are, explain pros and cons so they can make an informed choice. So up front, we feel that we've done our job. If those folks can make an informed choice, they know their numbers, and they can be educated as to what's going on in the market.
Excellent. And as you were talking about that, something just popped into my mind, curveball for you. What's the biggest mistake someone can make prior to coming to you to get pre-approved for a loan?
Great question. I would say it's either opening new credit accounts or perhaps closing old ones. Some folks don't realize that a $100 or maybe a $300 payment, perhaps for an automobile or some other type of financing, how much that can impact their buying power. To put that in a bit of a perspective, a $300 monthly payment will roughly affect someone's qualifying amount by about $50,000.
Okay, so as I think about this, and I'm talking to people, don't try and do it on your own. Call Keith first. It's very important. So in terms of putting things together, documentation and things, how prepared do you want someone to be when they come see you, or just give you a call and let's go over it?
Yeah, give me a call, let's go over it. That's always a good place to start. Happy to meet with folks in person. I think it's never too early to start to determine your options and know what's out there and available. Before someone is going to be actively out looking at property, that's where we would recommend that we do the actual pre-approval, and that's where we're going to gather the income and asset docs and run credit and really complete the application, run it through the proper underwriting channels to really know that financing is readily available for that person. It's just a matter of getting their offer accepted.
Excellent. So first-time buyers now, a lot of people are hearing things out in, I'll call it the market, out in the market, and, they hear things about housing, they hear things about interest, talking about interest rates rising. What's your take on that?
Sure. So, from the start of the year, the general consensus in the market is that we would see interest rates rise and be around 5% going into 2019 and somewhere between 5 and 5.5 throughout 2019. And that's really what we've seen. There's many variables and many factors that are going into that. But one thing I am constantly reminding folks is that the average interest rate over the last 30 years is 6.57. So historically, being under 6 has deemed to be relatively low. So still catching something around 5%. Still very good interest rates to be had. And I think we're going to see things gradually tick up if the economy continues to do well.
Excellent. And I think the forecast for the housing market is that there's going to be continued growth, maybe on a smaller scale than there's been. So, if someone's concerned about, do I buy now because interest rates are going up versus, do you see a balance there? Do you have some guidance to give there?
Yeah, great question. I mean, from my perspective, I think we will see interest rates gradually tick up. We're coming off of historic lows, and again, an average interest rate over the last 30 years, not that long of a time frame, being 6.57. So I think we got a good amount of a good ways to potentially go up. In terms of home prices, I agree, and there's a lot of variables that go into that as well. I think one of the largest ones is the supply and demand, where I think at minimum we'll see home prices hold. But I agree with you. I think we'll continue to see a slight steady appreciation somewhere between 2 and 5% is what's really predicted throughout Los Angeles over the next year or two from what we can really foresee at this time. What I have to remind folks is that a 0.5% difference in someone's interest rate will affect their buying power by 5%. So if someone is waiting right now, but they're waiting to purchase their long-term property, I personally don't see a reason to wait if they can move forward right now and get that interest rate, where it's at. Even if home prices stay where they are, or maybe go down a hair, I don't see them going down 5 or 10% versus interest rates going up 0.5% or 1%, very much so.
Yeah, so you got to play a balancing act there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah. So let's transition a little bit more from the less experienced buyer to the more experienced buyer.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people try and play, I guess the armchair quarterback, right, in mortgage rates too, and they're trying to watch, indicators. Mm-hmm. What kind of things would you suggest people look at when they're trying to monitor, whether it's the right time or not the right time for them?
Great question, great question. So I focus a lot of my efforts on watching our mortgage-backed securities. The mortgage-backed securities, that is truly where the 30-year fixed rate or rates in general are derived from. When it trades at a lower price, interest rates go up. When it trades at a higher price, interest rates go down. It's ultimately a bond that's traded on the open market, like your typical, stocks and bonds that are out there. So that's what we pay close attention to. There's a lot of other indicators out there. Generally, when we see the stock market doing well, bonds are usually selling off. When the stock market is selling off, we usually see investors parking their money in bonds, and that at times helps rates. So, once a customer is in escrow, that's the time that we have the opportunity to lock, and that's where we look at those bonds very carefully and see, when in that escrow period will it be the ideal time, and try to give our best advice and recommendation. And again, it's all about having the customer make an informed choice.
So, Keith, a lot of great information here. Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of people will find this very helpful. And again, the key here is as you begin to think about the home buying process, reach out to Keith at Wintrust. He can provide you the great direction to go in first and avoid you from making any mistakes because you want to do it on your own. So don't be embarrassed because you're concerned about credit or you don't have the knowledge to speak it, what you think is intelligently. Reach out to Keith. And Keith, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, call, email, come into the office, say hello. You can reach me direct at 661-513-3118. That goes to my office as well as my cell phone. I would say that would be the best place to start.
Excellent. Well, Keith's got a great team here. He doesn't work alone. He's got a great support staff here that can help you out. So again, when you're ready to get started, reach out, give Keith and the Wintrust team a call. And Keith, thank you so much for sharing all this great information.
Thank you very much for coming in.